So this topic is all about Xamarin, right? So I would like to know, first thing, I can see that there are 14 attendees in the class. So if you can put on the chat down below, how many of you guys have done Xamarin or heard about it? Uh, so if you can put on the chat down below that I have done Xamarin, I have heard about it, or I have not heard about it. So if you can put here, yes. You can see here that I'm on the global chat. There is a chat window down. I just want to get a feel from the audience. So I can see that David has done something on Xamarin. Good, that is nice. So in case if you have not done it, you can say I have not done it. So with that, I will come to know, yes, that people have not done. 80% people have done, 20% people have not done. So I can say just basic overview. So I can say not done, just here, not tried. Okay, good. So I can see like from the chat, some people have tried, uh, and then some people have not tried, and so on. So that's good. Okay. So let me start here very quickly. So my agenda this training this session I'll say is more on the basics of Xamarin. So it is not in case people who have done a bit of Xamarin, if they have uh, deployed something and so on, then for them this is a repeat, right? But people who have not done anything, like people who have just starting with, and must be via this session, I want to build that interest on you, that must be that for mobile programming you can consider Xamarin. I can also see some people are saying that they have tried WPA, but believe me, Lakshman sir, like WPA is way beyond the behind Xamarin. When you look at Xamarin, you will understand what I'm saying. So let us first start with what is the goal of Xamarin here. Okay. So I'm going to go and open a notepad. As I've said, like at this moment, I do not have any kind of notes as such, so I'll write down here. So if you talk about Xamarin, right? Now, when you talk about doing mobile programming on, let us say, Android, or if you want to do mobile programming on iOS, right? So if you say mobile programming on Android, then people would recommend you please use Java language. If you say iOS, people will say Objective C and so on, right? But when it comes to C Sharp language, now C Sharp is a flagship language of Microsoft. So when it comes to C Sharp language, like we do not have any alternative, right? So if you see here, we had this thing called as Windows Phone. I'm sure, like if you know about this. So Windows Phone was there for some years, but after that Windows Phone was closed. So if you want to do mobile programming with using C Sharp, then it was only Windows Phone at that time. But the biggest market is definitely one is your Android and the other one is your iOS, right? So in this, like when it comes to C Sharp developers, they did not have anything. So that's where this Xamarin comes into picture. This Xamarin is a framework, right? And this framework helps C Sharp developers to create native applications, right? To create native applications on Android and iOS. So that's what the goal is, right? So by you like if you see like in my organization, I have a lot of developers who are already doing C Sharp, they are doing web forms, they are doing MVC. Now to go and hire people who are in Java and then train them and then bring them on board, right? That takes a lot of time, right? So if I can create C Sharp applications for mobile using C Sharp for mobile, then that I can leverage my current what do you call my development power, right? So that's what is Xamarin all about. Now, from where did all this start? So just a bit of history here. So if you remember, we had, so .NET Framework was launched in 2003. 2003, that's what .NET 1.1 was, then 2.0, 3.0, 3.5, 4.5. So that trail was there. So this was .NET Framework, and now we also have .NET Core, which is cross-platform and so on, right? But while this was launched, right, parallelly there was one framework which was built called as Mono. I'm not sure if how many of you guys have heard about this. There was a Mono framework. This Mono framework can run cross-platform. It can run on Linux. It can run on other operating systems as well, right? Now this Mono framework was there, but it was mostly like a academic framework. Like people were not building anything by using Mono as such, right? So after that, the Xamarin team, the Xamarin company, for Xamarin was not a company which belonging to Microsoft. It was a separate organization. They took up this Mono framework and they started building Xamarin on this, because if Mono can run anywhere, then Mono can also run on Android and Mono can also run on iOS, right? So they took this Mono framework, which was their cross-platform, because there was no other cross-platform built by Microsoft as such for .NET, right? So they took this Xamarin and they built Xamarin on the top of it, and they use C#. So Xamarin is a framework, which is built using the Mono framework of .NET. Okay, and again, this Mono framework was built by community people. It was not built by Microsoft. Okay, so that's what is Xamarin all about. It helps you to build mobile applications on iOS, on Android by using Xamarin, by using C# language. Okay. Now, the first thing is, so if you see here, so in order to do development using uh, for Xamarin, right? So first thing is you need to have the Visual Studio Community Edition, at least have 2015 or 2017. So you can have the Community Edition. The first thing what you need is you need to enable the cross-platform mobile development checkbox. So you can see here when you install your Visual Studio, right? You need to go and click on that checkbox and say that, yes, I want to install C# and .NET for Xamarin. So without this, you will not get the templates. Okay, so that's the first thing what you need to do. You can see on my screen that small checkbox out there, which you need to select while installing the Visual Studio, right? And also you need to also go and select the Android SDK setup. So you can see there are two other checkboxes in the common tools. So in that also you need to go and set up the Android SDK setup. So both of them, these three of them you need to at least check. I would suggest to even check the Android SDK setup as well. Okay, so that is the next thing. Okay, so once you do that, so you can see here, this is my Visual Studio here. Okay, so this is my Visual Studio. So if you want to go and create a project, you will do a file new project, and you can see that there is something here called as Android. So this has got installed the time I have put that small setup out there. So you can see this is, I can develop Android over here, and at the same time you can see I have something called as iOS over here. Okay, and also we have something called as cross-platform. These three menus, you can see these three menus. Again, I will repeat here. This is Android. So in this you can see you can create a normal Android application, mobile application. You can create the VR apps. For example, if you have a wrist Android kind of VR apps, you can use that. Okay, and also you can develop for iPhones, iOS, right? Now, if you look at Android and iOS, right, they have a lot of difference. For example, I will just show you some difference out here. For example, look at this. Android, the user experience of Android mobile and the user experience of iOS iPhone mobiles are different, right? For example, you can see this is at the left hand side. This is something which is coming from actually an Android, right? But you can see at the right hand side, this is coming from iOS. Okay. Now what happens is when you create applications by using this Android menu, or when you create by application by using iOS menu, you can get this native look and feel. Okay. So if you want to say that I want to get the native look and feel of iOS, this kind of native look and feel what iOS has, then you need to go and select this iOS over here. If you say no, like I want to get native look and feel of Android as it is, right, then you need to select this Android. So that's why these two things here are termed as native Xamarin applications. So when you actually go and create projects out here, that means that you want to only go and create using Android, okay, or you want to only go and create for iPhones. But now, if you say that no, like I want to create a single UI, right? So I want to just create one UI which can run in both the what you call operating systems, both the mobiles. Then you can go and create something called the Xamarin Forms. So there are three types of project templates here. The first one is Android, iOS, and the Xamarin Forms. So these two are termed as native, and these two are termed as, this one is termed as Xamarin Forms. So any questions at least on the basic part first? What do we need to install in order to do Xamarin? What kind of projects we have in Xamarin? Any queries? So if you have any questions, what you can do is you can go and put down your question on the chat. So again, I repeat, Xamarin is nothing but it helps you to create projects, mobile projects by using C# language. The second thing is you need to go and do the installation, saying that, okay, I want to, you have to go and enable the Xamarin installation of Visual Studio. The third thing is that there are three kinds of templates. One is two kinds of templates. One is for native application development, and the second one is for cross-platform. So any queries at least till here? If you have any questions, you can put down on the chat. I'm watching the chat. So I can see the question out here. I'll just take this as a question from Pradeep. What should I do? Like, should I select form or should I select native, right? For real applications, what is good? Okay. Now, frankly, that depends, because, for example, if you're very sticky, if you say no, like if the person is iPhone, then he should feel like iPhone. He should not see buttons of Android. Okay. If you say, okay, if a person is from Android, he should get that user experience of Android, right? Then you need to create two separate applications. There is no way out from here. But if you say no, like I'm okay, like, it's a simple form. It doesn't have too many tabs. It has only 4 or 5 text boxes, a simple grid, right? Then go for what you call forms, because your application is simple. So if your application is simple, 2-3 pages, not too many complex UI, you can go with this Android for the forms. But if you say no, like you want to get a native look and feel, then you need to go and use the respective operating system, right? Yeah. So any more questions? So now what I will do is, if there are any questions, please go ahead, put it on the chat down below. I am more than willing to answer. So what I'll do is, now let me go and create this. Let's start with Android for now. So I'm going to go and click on this Android. I'll create a blank app here. So I'll name this as app as my app 123. Okay. And let us see that what kind of things are needed. Okay. So I already have this my app 1234. Oh. Okay, my test app. Looks like I've created a lot of my apps. So now if you see the project structure of a Xamarin project, so you can see here that you can see on the UI, I'm showing you the project structure of the Xamarin project, right? The first code which will come to your mind, which you will see out here, is an activity. You can see that there is something called as an activity out here. So let me explain you what exactly is an activity. Now, an end user normally will work on your mobile, so he will do some kind of an activity. He will do a left swipe, he will do a right swipe, he will interact with the application, right? He will do clicks, he will do double clicks, swipe, and so on, right? So what kind of that whatever that activity is there, right? That activity is actually the code of that activity is written out here. Okay, so if you look at this activity out here, is actually going and starting a view. You can see this code out here, set content view. It is actually going and starting a screen, or bootstrapping a screen called as main. And if you look at this main out here in the assets, in the resources, we have in the layout this main.axml. So if I double click on this, so this activity first gets started, and the activity actually goes and starts the UI. So you can see this is the UI, which is here. Okay. So now let us say on this UI, I will go and I will put some buttons or something. So I can go to the toolbox out here. So you can see that there is this, what do you see, what do you get kind of a UI. So I can put some buttons here. I can put some labels here. So let me put a label. Text must be, okay. Now, this UI out here is nothing. If you see internally, it is a XML file. Okay, if you look at the name also at the left hand side, you can see the name is AXML, right? That is Android XML. Okay, so internally it's a XAML file, it's an XML file, and this designer understands it, and you can go and you can drag and drop and do things. But internally, this file is an AXML file. Now, what happens is, when you go and put any buttons out here, when you go and put any text boxes out here, right? For example, you can see here, I have put a button, I have put a text box, right? And let me just go and do a build here. Now, what it does is, whatever you have put in your UI, the buttons, the text boxes, and so on, it actually goes and makes an entry of this in the resource designer.cs. You can see out here, there is a resource designer.cs, and in the resource designer.cs, you will never touch this resource designer.cs. It is an auto-generated code, right? But you can see out here, there is this button. It has given some kind of a unique number to it. You can see that even you have this text box, and this text box also has a unique number to it, right? So everything what you do on the UI is a resource. You put a button, you put a label, you put a image source or whatever, right? Everything is a resource, and that resource is entered into the resource designer.cs. And in the resource designer.cs, there is a unique number allocated to that resource. Okay. Any questions still here? I've talked about what is the use of this activity, right? I talked about what is this this AXML file, and then also I talked about that how in the resource designer.cs we have an entry of the IDs. So any questions on these three concepts? So let me go step by step, because what will happen is, if I try to go at the last, right, with all the questions, it will take a lot of time, right? So must be as I go step by step, I can just keep ensuring that you are able to hear me, you can understand what I'm saying. Yes, any questions on the resources, the resource designer.cs, the main.axml, the XML, what do you see? Okay, I can see some questions here. I'm sorry, I can see. Okay, I can take this. So there is a question from Mr. Rajiv here. Both Java and Xamarin are native. Which one has the best performance? So very good question. Well, if you ask me very clearly, I would say that Java has a slight better performance, nanosecond performance. If you really want to tell me, ask me, it's a nanosecond performance. So Xamarin, people will use, who are good in C Sharp. Like I'm good in C Sharp. Like learning Java, learning all the concept, learning Eclipse is something very big for me. I would like to use Visual Studio. I would like to use C Sharp and do development as soon as possible, right? So Xamarin's main goal is targeted for C Sharp developers. So when you're talking about performance, yes, especially for for Android, Java has the upper hand. But then when you try to say that okay, run it on iOS, then C Sharp has the upper hand when it comes into iOS performance, right? So again, that performance is not like to a great extent. It's okay. Like so do not try to do nano optimization. Okay, so there's a question here from Rojan Sreshta. What happens if we change the resource value, the integer value? So first thing, Rojan, you can see here, this is an auto-generated code. If you see at the top, it is said, you can see on the screen out here, I'm flashing, that it is very clearly Microsoft has said this, that this code is generated by the tool and you shouldn't be touching it. So when you actually go and do things on the designer, when you're actually dragging and dropping all that buttons and etc., that code is generated. So do not touch that code. Even if you're touching that code, it will overwrite it again. Okay, so it will overwrite it. So there is this only I showed you just to make you understand that how it looks like. Like at least in whatever Xamarin projects I have worked, I have never opened the resource designer.cs. Okay, so that's the answer for it. Let me see what other questions are, and I can go slow. Okay, so any questions, guys? I think that's good. So let me go here now. So I have this button out here, and now I need to go and start writing code on this, right? I want that, let's say I want to go and click on the button and click on this and set some value on the large text file, right? This large text. Now, as a C# developer, as a ASP.NET developer, we all have that habit of double clicking on it. It does not work. So if you try to double click on this button, nothing is going to happen. So that's a very sad part of it, right? So where do I write the code behind? Where is it, right? So do not try to double click. Nothing is going to happen over that. So what you have to do is, so first thing is, so over here in this, so okay, now over here, if you see this, so the code you write is in the main activity. So wherever is your activity class, you write the code here in the activity class. Okay, so how do you write it? Here it is. So this activity class starts, and it starts the main XAML. You can see here, look at that small sign here. If I say go to definition, you can see it actually goes to that number. This is very important. The Xamarin structure is very weird. Okay, so you have to get into that psychology of the Xamarin structure. So you can see here, this resource dot layout here means that this resource will actually go to the resource designer. So if I ever try to say go to definition, I'm expecting him, you can see here, it has gone to the resource designer here. Okay. Second, okay, check your audio settings. Okay, let me check that. I'm not sure. Okay, I can see. Okay. Check your audio settings. Should I? Okay. Okay, let me, Jay, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yes, it's I have told to Raji.
Okay, you have sent to Rajesh. Okay, sorry, I'm sorry. I thought that it is for me. I'm sorry. Okay, good. So let us go back here. So now this one here, so it goes to the resource, it go to the layout. So if I want to access that button also, I will be like this. I'll say here resource dot, and then I have to get that ID or whatever, right? So resource dot layout dot, right? And then in the main, okay. So now if I have to get that button, so let's first get that button here. In the button click, I want to write something. So I'll say button btn, okay, and I will say here find view by ID. So get me the button here. So I want to get the button instance, right? Okay. So button, and over here I will get my resource. I can just make this smaller. So resource dot. Now our button has an ID, right? So there it is. So you can see now what this is doing here is this is actually going and getting a button reference for you, okay? And then I can say here in this btn click, right? I want to go and do something. So for example, in this btn click, I want to go and set something to my text box, right? So you have to go and say find view by ID, and then you have to get the button reference and then start writing code out here. So I would also like to get a reference to my label, right? So I will go and reference my label as well. So control V here. So now remember that this is not a label, this is a text. Okay, if you see the source out here, this is actually a text view. Okay, it is not a label, it is not a text box as such, it's a text view. So I'll say, okay, also go and get me the access to my text view. So this is my text view. So find view by ID. Again, through the ID, we can get the access of the text view. Can you see it's named by text one, right? I will get it there. So now what I'll do is in this button click, I'll say in that text, please go and set something. So I'll say text dot. Well, actually, this should be a class object. So what I'll do is I'll make these guys the class level because I need to access it everywhere. So let me move them on the top of the class, right? Right, so that I can access it here. I just made the variables at the class level, right? And then I will say now text dot text is equal to hello. I'm sorry. So you can see now very weird way of coding, but once you get into this mindset, you are into Xamarin. So you can see what I've did. Whatever buttons I've drag and dropped here on the UI. So whatever buttons I've drag and drop on my UI out here, all of these buttons have an ID, right? So what I'm doing out here is in this main activity.cs, I'm first going and I'm getting the access to the buttons by using the find view by ID. So I'm getting access to this button, I'm getting access to this text box, and to the button, I'm attaching a click event. And in this click event, I'm saying hello Xamarin. Now what I will do is, after the content is set, you shouldn't be writing this code. This should be done before the UI is loaded. So this code should go before the set content view. So let me do that. So you can see here, because what will happen is, or else the main view will load, and then we have problems. Okay. So any questions on this part? How to go and locate a resource? Where to go and write code? Any queries here? I'll build this solution. So any questions on the code what I've written? It's a very simple code, simple button click. I'm using the find view by ID to get the access to the objects, and then attaching my code, attaching my events. So if you have any questions, you can go and put it on the chat down below. No, it's that text view was, that's okay. There's no problem of casting, Pradeep. Should be casted to a text view. So, oh yes, thank you very much. Yes. Good, good. Oh, looks like okay. So everybody's watching me. I'm happy for it. And you know what? He did not throw me an exception. Can you see? Build succeeded. I don't know what is happening, guys. Thank you for that. I it did not give me error. Like I was expecting some red signs out here. That is strange. Huh? Why didn't I get a red sign there? I don't know. Fine. Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for that. Okay. So now once this is done, we need to go and test it. We need to go and see somewhere that how this looks like, what is happening, right? So you can see here, so in order to test this, we have simulators, we have emulators, right? So you can see here, I have the Visual Studio Android emulator, which I've installed. So you can see out here on my screen here, if you go and see, you can see a lot of emulators which Visual Studio is supporting, right? So if you want, you can go and you can select one of them. I selected Visual Studio. Now you can see there is Android. This Android comes from the actual Android team, right? And this one is Visual Studio Android. So this is much faster, faster in terms of deployment, faster in terms of loading. So I've selected this, okay? And you can see this is running out here. So let me go and click on build and deploy, and let me try to deploy this solution. So I'm going to go and deploy this solution. Remember that this project is named by the name My Test App. So you can see at the left hand side, the name is My Test App. Okay. So if this deployment all works well on my mobile or my emulator, I should be able to see My Test App, right? So let us see if I get that. So you can see it is deploying. You can see at the left hand, at this small here, my mouse is moving out here, left to right, right to left. It is saying deploying on Visual Studio phone, and this is the Visual Studio phone where it is deploying. You can also deploy to your live mobile. In case you have your Xamarin phone, you can connect to your USB and it should just work, right? So let's first do this. So if everything goes well, somewhere I should see my app. So my app, this name is My Test App. Where is my app? It's still deploying. Okay. So guys, any questions till then? I can see that it's still deploying, and this is where it takes a lot of time, to deploy. This is where it consumes a lot of time, especially when it comes for emulators. Yeah. So until that app starts here, any queries, any questions? If you have any questions, you can put down. Okay, just doing something. Okay, so I have a question here, right? So let's look at the question until this loads and everything. Can you use Java libs in Xamarin? Well, Xamarin uses Java libraries. So remember, at the end of the day, the whole API at the end of the day internally talks with Java. Okay, so yes, you can use Java libraries. You can call to them. So that is already there as a part of the Xamarin call. Okay, it's taking a lot of time to deploy. That's the worst part. Okay, any questions? Yes, any queries? Let me know. My app. Yeah, so there you can see, can you see this? You can see this small icon out here, My Test App. So guys, I'll just complete this demo. You can see this small thing out here, My Test App. That's the Android sign. I'll click on that. So that's the application running. Where are my buttons? It's loading. It's very slow. I have a very bad machine. Oops, something went wrong out there. You can see now something has gone wrong out there, and we need to debug as well, right? So how about debugging this? You can see when I click on this, it just threw me an exception. And I always feel that you should have exceptions. If you don't get exceptions, you don't learn, right? So let us see what happens. You can always go and debug. So I'm going to go and put a debug point out here. And let us try to run this in a debug mode. So guys, I'm just doing a debug to just check that what is the error out there, right? Okay, so until this all slow things runs, let us see. So third-party jar files and UI libraries, etc. Yes, yes, you can. Yes, you can call. Yes, you can. You have to call. Actually, it's not like you can call. You have to call because the whole Android system is having a lot of Java code, right? So you have to call it. So there, my debug is running now. I can see that I am on a debug mode, right? And so there, my application is running. And let us see if my debug point will be hit. Okay. Okay, there it is. So it goes here. So you can see, guys, I'm just debugging now. You can see it's very easy to debug here as well. Same like how we are doing in C#. Let me just check. Let's go slow and slow. So find view by ID. The button click is all fine. Oh, that's the exception. Can you see like null reference of PTN click? Okay, shucks. Okay, guys, so this is the error. Now, I think I did a mistake. The UI, the main view should load first, means these buttons don't exist, right, without this view. I'm so horrible in coding. You can see here, like, I put this code at the top, but the buttons cannot fly on the air, right? I don't know why I did that. So this, after the main view is loaded, then only these buttons have importance, isn't it? So there it is. I've again done, I've moved the code down. I'm sorry for that. So let me go and run this. Also, what I'll do is I'll just ensure that I'm on a debug mode so that in case if there is a problem, I should see it. Okay, I hope everybody got the error, right? The error was that my main view should first load, then only the button objects are live, or else these IDs are not live at all, right? So that was my mistake, right? So let that run, let this code run out here. And remember, guys, whenever you are doing development, right, once you start the emulator, please don't close it because this emulator take hell lot of time to start. Okay, so once you start the emulator, do not close it. So till then, I'll take questions. Can you tell me about the Xamarin architecture, how it is able to develop native applications? So I'll talk about that. I'll talk about that, Smaran sir. So let's fix this. One of the things I've learned while developing Xamarin is that you have to have a lot of patience. It really tests your patience. So there it is. And I'll go step on that slow. And this time I don't want to get that. You can see now it's passing that link. It's so nice to see that, right? So now I can click on that button and look at that. Hello Xamarin, right? Okay, right. Thank you very much. Okay. So any questions, guys? On this is a small demo, but I hope that this will give you idea, like that what things you need, what you need to install, what you need to do, and so on, right? Okay, there are some questions, so I'll just talk about this. Can you tell the architecture about Xamarin, how it is able to develop native application? So here's how it is, right? So the architecture of Xamarin, let me see if I have the document so that I can show you the architecture as well here, because I had this small diagram which I had created. Again, guys, you can see that I have a document out here. If you want to become a proper Xamarin developer, an Android developer, you need to know a lot of things. Whatever I taught you now, it's all good, but then you need to understand the Android activity lifecycle. You need to really understand how to create dialog boxes, how to talk with databases, how to talk with WCF services, how to do a swipe, how to get the X coordinate, Y coordinate, how to check the accelerometers, right? So real Xamarin developer is more, it's more like hard coding, and so over here now, the architecture. Okay, so I don't have the diagram here. Let me just check. So I'll answer one question by one question. Let me just check. Sorry, guys. Today I did not prepare a lot of PPTs out here, and that's my bad part. Okay. Let me do like this. How about I can get any kind of Xamarin architecture diagram online. I can explain that. I'll just go and search online and take any of the diagrams and okay. Right now, so let me take one good one. Okay, this is a nice one. Okay, so that's okay. Just quickly, guys. Once I talk about that. Now look at this. This is one small image out here. Which will make a lot of sense. So the Xamarin Forms, right? In Xamarin Forms, if you look at if you create just Xamarin application, or if you create just iOS application, you will be having different user interfaces. You will create user interfaces for Windows Phone, you will create user interfaces for Android, you will create for iOS, but must be that you have a shared C# code. You will have a shared C# code, right? But when you create a Xamarin Form, you will have a shared C# code, business logic, but you will also have a shared UI. But remember that this UI is not as flexible as each one of their genes. Like for example, must be what you see in Android, you will not see as you see in the Xamarin Forms. So these both of them, you can see this small architecture out here, right? So that is how the Xamarin and the Xamarin, the native and the Xamarin Forms looks like. Now here it is. Here is how the diagram is not out here. Okay, let me just. You should always be prepared with your. Okay, there isn't any good diagram. So let me explain you guys. I can just talk about the layers in the notepad at least, right? So what happens is, so you have your C# code, right, which is running. So first thing is, when you compile it, right, it's all IL code internally, right? So the Mono framework, that's the main person. The Mono framework, runs your C# code. So it's because the Mono framework knows how to run your C# code into Xamarin platform, or into Android, into iOS, right? Now this Mono framework actually talks with your Android. There is something called as I will say that this is a Xamarin linker. They term it as a Xamarin linker. This linker is a gel code. This gel code, what it does is it takes all the calls from the C# and passes it to the down layer of Android or iOS. So when you say that, okay, find view by ID, must be he will make an internally call to the Android API and do the things for you, right? So this translation is done by the Xamarin linker. Okay, so that's why I'm saying, like, there is a nanosecond of performance problem, because at the end of the day we have this Xamarin linker, which is there. Also, I would like to add here that the size of a Xamarin application is 10 to 20% more if you develop by using normal Java or something. So if you are actually developed by using the Android, or if you're using Objective-C, right? So whatever is the size of the code, you will find that when you use Xamarin, you will have that 10-15% of difference. Why? Because in that, the Mono framework also gets shipped. So that is the basic architecture out here. The Mono framework has the IL code. It calls the Xamarin linker, and internally it makes a call to the Android and the iOS API. Okay. So there is a question here. Can you show the same code in iOS? So Santosh sir, I'm so sorry. Like, for iOS, it's really bad. For iOS, you need to have first thing the Mac machine. You need to have the iPhone and so on. So at this moment, I'm sorry that I cannot demonstrate it. But if you can send a mail to Jay sir, I can probably give you some links, where you can see the demo. So at this moment, I'm not really ready with doing something with iOS and so on. Okay. Yes. Any queries, guys? Anything else? So let me revise, guys. I know that I'm almost done here because almost it is 1 hour now, 7:50. So I'll put down some points here. Must be these points can help you to start Xamarin development, right? So Xamarin is a platform, mobile. It's a mobile development platform where C# is used, C# for mobile development, right? For installing it, you need to first install the SDK of Xamarin in Visual Studio. That's the second point to remember, right? Third point, Xamarin, it has two types of templates. One is you can create a native one, and the other one is you can create a form that so you can create a Xamarin form, right? but both of them have the plus and negative points. Second, the UI is made in AXML, so there is a XML at the background, wherein which helps you to create the UI. Please remember, if you right click, if you double click and all that, so there is no direct like code behind as you get, so no direct code behind as such, right? You write all your code in the activity class. So in the activity class, you write the interaction code. Okay, you write all your interaction code. Whenever you drag and drop any button, any form, anything, right, it has an ID at the background, and there is an ID generated, right? And this ID is entered into the resource designer.cs. So there's a resource designer.cs where things are entered. You will use the find view by ID, right, to get access to that instance, and then you can start attaching the events. You can start accessing that object. In order to run your application, right, you need to definitely have some kind of an emulator or simulator, or I can say, so you need to have an emulator. Emulators are two types: one which comes from the Android team in case you are doing in Android, and then one which comes VS and Android, which is more faster with Visual Studio. So you can try this one, right? So that's the basic part, guys. So any questions, guys? So almost it is 7:51. I don't want to stretch too much. If you have any questions now, I'm open for questions out here. If you have any queries, you can please write down on the chat. So I'm sorry for the iOS demo, we cannot do it now, but must be next time if we can connect again, we can see that, or else you can send a mail to Jay sir, and I will see that it is done. Yes. Any more questions? Anything else? So the whole goal of this exercise is to make you start with Xamarin and start coding, okay? And see that, deploy a small app in your mobile, see how it looks like, and see, like, by using C# only you can do it, right? You don't have to learn Java for it. Yeah, so I think no questions. So Jay sir, I'm not sure, like, I know that we are wrapping up very fast, but I don't see any questions out there. Maybe we can wait for a minute.
Okay, so there is a question from Pradeep Raj Thapalia. So
okay, can you show the same code for iOS? Yeah, so the iOS part, on comparing Xamarin and React Native, what do you think? So good question, Rojan Sreshta. So basically here the question is that, so what like about Xamarin and React Native? Okay, now first thing, let me be very candid here to say that Xamarin is like a saline. I'll be very clear on this. Okay, like a saline means like, okay, I can develop using Xamarin, but because at this moment, because for C# developers we do not have alternatives. Okay, when you talk about React, right? In React, like if he's now look at it. If he's a React programmer, why will he try to learn C# and do Xamarin? That's the first thing. If I'm a C# programmer, if there is a learning curve for me to go to React and do React Native, or to do Objective-C, right? So the point here is that I have a platform, I know C#, right? And I just want to leverage that knowledge and develop Xamarin. So if you are having C# developers in your company, you do not want to hire a React person, then you do not want to get into what do you call into training of React, right? I think you should choose Xamarin, because see, like, if you talk about the comparison, the technical comparison between Xamarin versus React versus this all, right, almost they are all same. There can be plus and minus, I can say that he is faster, his size is smaller, right? But that is nano comparison. So I think more than the technical comparison, because technically everything what Xamarin can do, React can do much better, must be. Okay, it's possible. Okay, but the point here is that what is your company's portfolio? What is your company's genes? What is your company's main manpower in? I think you should look into that. So choice of Xamarin is more of the choice which you make from your employees' point of view, from your team standpoint of view. So comparing React and Reactive Native and Xamarin, I feel we can have a lot of articles on it. I can discuss for an hour also. But more than that, I will stress on that what is my current team power. If it is React, I will go with React Native. Okay. But from the technical point of view, I don't feel that there is too much comparison in terms of performance. They are almost same. Also, like I do not want to get into that thing also, saying that okay, so what native can do and what a browser cannot do. I don't want to get into that because I think it's also achievable by React Native as well. What Xamarin can do. Okay, so I would say on comparing this, I would say that what is your company's genes you have to look into and then make a choice. Can .NET libraries be used in Xamarin? Yes, you can use .NET libraries. .NET libraries, so Rojan, you're talking about is C# class libraries, right? So I'll just answer this question a bit long here. Now, remember, when you say C# libraries, right, very quickly, C# class libraries, so I'm trying to answer from that point of view. Now, you'll write a common code base in C# class library. That common code base should be used inside Xamarin, inside Android, I'm sorry, and inside iOS, and must be inside Windows Phone. Now, such kind of a common code base you write by using portable class libraries. So if you see here, I need to go and add. So I cannot use my .NET class library. Guys, don't try to do that. If you're trying to do that, it's a problem. So you need to go here to C#, and you can see somewhere there should be portable PCL. There is portable, and nowadays there is something called as .NET Standard, which you can also look into that. That is also good for creating those kind of code, So if you look at this portable class library, when I add this portable class library, it says that, so what is your target frameworks? Like, where do you want to run this? This is the common code base. So you want to run this on Xamarin Android, you want to run this on Xamarin iOS, you want to run this on Xamarin Mac, right? So now this code base you can refer everywhere. So if you want to create a common code base or .NET libraries, whatever, then you can use this. And if you're talking about .NET libraries or system.NET, you can use it as it is. Means like .NET, whatever .NET you have is all here, right? So that .NET, if you're talking about, like in the main activity, I can always go and create an object of list, right? I can create an object of generics, right? So that's all there. But in case you say a common, you can use any .NET library, but please note, like I'm just trying to get the question. If you're saying to create a common code base, you will use PCL, the one which I showed. But if you're saying that can I use any .NET library, you can use any .NET library, but you cannot use things like system.data. Like you cannot use data set, you cannot use data reader. So if you see here in the references, if you look at in the references, you will find that a lot of things you cannot add really. If you try to really try this, if you try to do an add reference, right, you will see that from the frameworks, a lot of things will be missing which you cannot add here. Okay, so you can see like in this, probably you will not find system.data, probably you will not find a lot of things. You can see here, can you see over here, I can find system data, but you can see still a lot of things are missing here. I can see there is system data, but I need to check what exactly. But that huge list of .NET is not out here. Please note, it's a mobile application, right? So we cannot put MVC and all those things out here. Okay. So yes, there is restriction on what you can use. So did that? So let me know if that answered your question. I was not sure of the question, so I answered from two perspectives: how to create a common class library, and yes, you can use .NET, but then there are some restrictions on some of the namespaces what you can use. Yeah, so yes, any questions, anything else? How about using platform specific code? Platform specific, can you come back, Rojan, on that? I'm not sure. Platform specific means only for Xamarin you're saying, and only for iOS? If you're saying that, then you can add platform specific Xamarin libraries. So if you're saying that, you can go and add a new project. So for example, if I want to just build for Android, you can see I can create just an Android class library. Can you see that small link out here? So this class library can be used only for Android application. It cannot be used in iOS. So yes, you can create platform specific. Okay, Jay sir. So I think it's almost 1 hour, and we should respect everyone's time. Okay. Thank you very much. I will hand over the mic to Jay sir. It was really a nice session. Thank you for all the interaction. Thank you, Jay sir. That you give me this opportunity of speaking out here. Thank you very much. So I will go on a mute, and Jay sir, I will hand over to you. You can take it ahead from here.
Thank you, Shivprasad Koirala sir, for coming on this webinar, and it was okay. So session. So I will open. So I will mute all the participants. Unmute all the participants. So can we have a discussion between the attender, sir?
Yes, you can. Yes, please go ahead. I will go on a mute. You can go ahead with the discussions. Yes.
Okay, so I will unmute all the participants. So if anyone wants to ask the question, so you can talk with Shiv sir. So I'm going to unmute all the participants.
And Jay sir, what I've done is I've already taken a lot of questions on. I've taken it to the text chat. Okay, but yes, let us have 5 minutes of discussion on the mic, and then we can log off. Yes, sure. Please go ahead. I'll just go on mute.
Okay. So if there is any question, I have unmute all the attendants. So you can ask the question to Shiv sir as well as to Vinod sir. Yeah. Yeah. So there is Robbie Gurung. So yeah. So you can talk. Yeah, Srijan cases. So we'll upload this webinar series on YouTube, so you can watch the video in there also. So we will be posting those video after the webinar. We'll share the link also too. So I think that there is no question. So we'll wrap up with this webinar. So thank you, Shiv sir and Vinod sir, for attending this webinar, for giving your presentation on this webinar. It was a wonderful for us. At last, I want to say something by Santosh Timnasina sir on this webinar, that what we are planning to do on further. So he will be trying. So he will be explaining a little bit about it.
Hello all. I would like first of all I would like to thank both the speakers and all the attendees who attend this webinar. अबको हाम्रो सेसनहरु हाम्रो मेन उद्देश्य भनेकै नलेज सेयर गर्नु हो हैन यो वेबिनारको तपाईहरुसँग पनि कुनै टपिक्सहरु यो टपिक्समा चाहिँ अब वेबिनार गर्दै हुन्थ्यो भन्ने खालको टपिक्सहरु एटेन्डेन्समा छ भने पनि तपाईहरुले हामीलाई चाहिँ कनेक्ट गर्दा हुन्छ र त्यो टपिक्समा चाहिँ हामी एक्सपर्टको जो एक्सपर्ट हुनुहुन्छ त्यो एक्सपर्ट खोजेर त्यो टपिक्समा चाहिँ अब पछिको वेबिनारहरु चाहिँ हामी त्यसरी गर्ने प्लानमा छौं हैन अनि स्पिकर तपाईहरु मध्ये कोही कुनै टपिक्समा स्पिक गर्न चाहनुहुन्छ भने पनि के नलेज शेयर गर्न चाहनुहुन्छ के एक्सपर्टिज शेयर गर्न चाहनुहुन्छ भने पनि हामी तपाईहरुलाई चाहिँ चान्स दिन चाहन्छौं हैन हामी चाहिँ त्यही भएर तपाईहरुले चाहिँ हामीसँग कनेक्ट भएर के गर्न सकिन्छ के गरेर राम्रो हुन्छ यो चाहिँ सबैको लागि नलेज शेयरिङ सेसन भएको भएर एकदम उद्देश्य एकदम प्योर भएको भएर चाहिँ तपाईहरु चाहिँ हामीसँग कनेक्ट गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ Okay, thank you very much for both the speakers and all the attendees.
Yeah, so at last, so we want to thanks to our supporters, TechLake, ASP.NET community, Broader Infosys, from where we are casting our webinar. Then after our Tech Bytes Media, so it is an startup company, and last but not least, Living with ICT. So thanks for their support. So and we are being able to do this webinar. Lastly, just thank you everybody for joining on this webinar, and we'll end this webinar. Thank you very much. Thanks.